Hey, thanks for pressing play on another Pay Me No Mind sports and entertainment video. Getting ready to get into some really important bite down boxing talk. I talked to a lot of fighters at different levels of their career, mainly guys just starting out or guys just getting into the prospect level. Um, but right now, one thing that I've been kind of monitoring is how this work stoppage is affecting, you know, younger fighters and guys that are more vulnerable to, horrific economic situations. And that's what we're facing right now in this COVID situation. So let me get your attention immediately. There's a way for fighters to apply to get 10,000 free dollars. 10,000 free dollars. There's some, you got to go jump through some hoops to get it, but it's not the most difficult thing in the world. And right now, while we have this downtime, I don't see how a fighter who, if you aren't Canelo, Danny Jacobs, a guy who just got over immensely with his deal to fight a Canelo. If you're not a Deontay Wilder, uh, you're not a Spence or even a Sean Porter to a degree, which I just heard him talking about some stuff the other day. But if you're not on those levels, you have families, so on and so forth. You have to take out some time to sit down and listen to what I'm getting ready to share with you. Uh, you have to seek out the original source and listen to it multiple times and devise a plan that will allow you or enable you to take care of you and yours through this situation as best as you possibly can. So back to this $10,000. Uh, Quickly, you can check Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. You can do something worthwhile with your phone, with your telephone that's on your hip or in your pocket or in your hand. But you can either check on, like I said, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast. You might even be able to find this at Ring Magazine or ringtvmag.com or Ring Magazine's website. And then also, here's another bit of information that's kind of universal. You can download an app called Podcast Addict, like crack addict, heroin addict. Podcast Addict is free. And you can go in there and type in different names and pull up podcasts that are listed wherever, and it'll bring them together for you in one piece. But the name of this podcast is one that I check out pretty regularly. But it's the Boxing Esquire podcast with Kurt Emhoff. And it's episode 47. I believe it's called a special edition of the Boxing Esquire podcast. That's the Boxing Esquire. It's just ESQ podcast. But Kurt Emhoff is a guy who's been representing fighters or been an attorney for fighters, for a couple of decades now. It's not a real hip show, so to speak. It's not or podcast. It's not the most. It's not over the top. It's kind of in line with what I do, but from way more insightful people than myself. But if you're a fighter, like I said, if you around 15 wins, 13 wins, something like that, and down, you need to listen to this podcast. There's no other way that I can put it how serious it is that you need to take the time in the middle of the night or get off all of this back and forth stuff on YouTube and all of the garbage on Twitter and some of the stuff that's out there on Instagram. You need to take some time and listen to this and use this information on your behalf. But Imhoff, along with representing different fighters throughout the years, his guests on this particular episode are Evan Rutkowski, who used to be an executive when HBO was involved with boxing. He's the host of the Fistianados podcast, another excellent source to go get some information that it kind of comes to you in a relatively unbiased presentation. Um, and he just speaks from his history of working at what was arguably the greatest boxing presenter or boxing production that's been in the sport for years. So I don't know how long he was with HBO, but his information and his insight is invaluable. So Evan Rutkowski is one of the speakers on there, and then these two guys who are very important to right now is labor attorney Walter Kane and financial planner Mike Alvini. They run down the whole 1200, well, the impact of COVID-19 on independent contractors, which is what fighters, cut men, trainers, strength and conditioning coaches, uh, so on and so forth. Everybody that's involved with boxing who eats and feeds their families from boxing, you might listen to this podcast and find how it applies to you in your circumstances. So, but they get into talking about this disaster relief loan, the 7B loan. It's also known as the 10K giveaway or something, like 10K lotto. But this $10,000, you apply for a loan as a small business, and you might be looking for assistance that way. But while you're waiting to hear about that loan, you can get this $10,000 forgivable. You know, there's no expectation for this 10K to be repaid. So I don't know who out here can't use $10,000 right now if you don't have a fight or no, you don't even have a schedule to even be looking out to at the moment. So I don't know how you couldn't take advantage of this to pursue this this $10,000 that you don't have to pay back. So but yeah, these funds could be dispersed to you within 21 days. So yeah, right now we might be looking at 30 days for an announcement when things could resume. Some people are saying out to October or November. Uh, don't think in the short term. You can apply for this now while you might be somebody around 18 to 20 fights and might be comfortable right now. But if things go out another month and a half, another 3 weeks, maybe you should have applied for something. So take the time to listen to this podcast, get that application going, and this is something that you could count on in the future. If things persist, if this thing is farther drawn out. The episode is like under 50. It's just under 50 minutes of runtime. Uh, and the labor attorney Walter Kane and the financial planner Mike Alvini, they leave their contact information at the end of this episode. So, which takes me to kind of my other part or portion of this. You know, I found out about this. Like I said, I listen to this regularly. This podcast, the Boxing Esq podcast, but I hadn't listened to too many podcasts lately about boxing because not many have relevant, it's not a lot going on the boxing schedule right now. So, but I heard about this from a post that Lou DeBella put out there urging fighters and people that work in the boxing industry to take a listen to. And so from there, somebody had screenshotted and reposted it on some other social media accounts. And so, I went to my Boxing Addict app to cut the corner, to getting directly to it. And I just listened to it on the way into here. I got some stuff I got to do. So I came in and just listening to the first 10 minutes of it, it's invaluable information for you as an independent contractor. And that could be independent contractors in different, maybe you own a small lawn care business or landscaping company or something, or photographer or something. Again, if you have any involvement with boxing, you should sit down and listen to this a couple of times. I don't know how I can stress it enough. You see a lot of trash, a lot of noise out here on YouTube for the YouTube boxing community, and on boxing Twitter and all this other stuff. Put that stuff to the side for a minute. Check this out and see if any of this applies to you. It is kind of complicated. There are limits discussed. There are minimums discussed. There's a way to get if you have a family, or children, spouse and children. Uh, it's a way that they discuss something about putting your family on your payroll, and if you have multiple kids, you know, listed on your payroll, there's additional money that's available to you because of that. And this is things I see a lot of guys taking the pictures, uh, showing their outfits, new sneakers, jewelry at the club, new vehicles, so on and so forth. Uh, on the other side of this thing, maybe this is an opportunity to take a look at what you're doing with your money and how you're moving with your money and how you should be doing things in a way more, in a way smarter way. Also, somebody like Lou DeBella, you put this tweet out here or this social media post, but and not just him. Are these managers, split T management? I talk to a lot of their guys. These managers, these promoters, are you gathering these people, these athletes around who you do all of this? You're involved with around the calendar, but now in this time of need, there's not being leadership given to these young men and women to help them out. So, Lou DeBella, are you having a conference call with your fighters uh, and running this down and telling them, giving them this information and helping them get the aid that they need at this time? And I say this because for some of the fighters out there, if you aren't being contacted by your managers or your promoters, if they aren't intentionally getting with you and making sure that you showing that they give a damn about you outside of the ring, maybe on the other side of this, maybe you realize that this individual doesn't have your best interests in mind, and you need to go somewhere uh, that's better for you, that's better for your career in the long run. Where they put friends, family, and team first, and where somebody is actually doing their job. And so, even an Al Heyman who's put guys on to way better ways to get their money, or to get more money, or to run their careers. Right now is a time where those additional, conversations need to be had. So, again, don't sit here with all of these channels who can tell you you're a victim, somebody's being uh, poorly managed, taken advantage of, beat, so on and so forth. So and so doesn't care about you. All of this, the way all of these things are spun right now, this is a simple litmus test. Did this so and so contact me in the last 2 or 3 weeks to help me out in any way? That you can start there. But again, at the end of the day, you protect yourself at all times. Here is a resource for you to listen to on your own. And like I said, the labor attorney and the financial planner have their contact information on there. If you don't understand what they're talking about, again, use your phone for something serious, for something real. Email them, call them, see if you can get a call back, and follow up until you get what you need to get. Typically, I've learned throughout the last several years, if you need some help, you might have to ask a few different sources, but people will help you out. And sometimes it's not even, strings attached to that assistance. Don't always think the world is out to get you, and everybody isn't an ally. I'm not saying that, but there are people out there willing to help out. A lot of times, the whole world is not crummy. It just isn't. But I know I've went over, but I tried to include most of the pertinent information in the first 3 to 5 minutes of this video. But I'll put the link out. I don't have the link. I'll put the link out from Podcast Addict. I'll probably have a picture of the podcast right here or right here or something in here as I post this up. But this is very serious business, man. Um, I talked to Stephen Shaw, a heavyweight prospect on the Bella Entertainment uh, roster. Two kids, a wife. Um, I'm sure this. I'm getting ready to text him now and say, hey, this is coming from your promoter. Or, he shed light on this. Check this out. Um, I just talked to Austin Williams. I had that live stream on the channel. He seemed to be in a good place where he is financially. Doesn't have as much responsibility as Shaw, but again, just because you're good now doesn't mean you still shouldn't take advantage of what's out there. Because if you've paid taxes, uh, if you've paid taxes, you're entitled to stuff. Get that, and use it for something beneficial. Use it for the next rainy day. Um, but I know tons of kids. A guy like Joshua Greer Jr. for Top Rank, he was getting ready to fight in a title eliminator fight. Probably by now, it would have happened by now. Or no, maybe that was what, April. Yeah, in a few weeks, he would have fought the Maloney kid. I know a couple other top ranked guys. So it's not. That's neither here nor there, though. I'm just saying there's different levels. It's fighters at different stages in their career, and there's some assistants out there that it's no need to sit around being clueless. It's no need for someone to needing to reach out to you to get with you about your business. You can, like I said, use your phone for the tool that it is and listen to this information that's just at the edge of your fingertips and help yourself out. So again, just doing my part, towards the game for the love of the game. Uh, Bite down boxing, like I always say, man. Don't let them count you out. Don't don't let them count you out right now in this matter that involves what's going on outside of the ring and away from the sport. Uh, and then pay me no mind. Don't pay me any mind. Don't do that on this particular issue right here. Um, you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. Take care, stay safe, and be healthy.